Inspirational Creatives, episode 237. Welcome to Inspirational Creatives. I'm your host, Rob Lawrence. Join me every Friday as I chat with successful artists, producers, and creative entrepreneurs who share powerful stories and strategies. They can help you to create the life that you want. Listen each week as these inspirational creatives show you how to take your creativity to the next level. You'll learn how to create a sustainable business that inspires others and gives you the financial freedom and lifestyle that you want. Thanks for listening. Make sure you sign up at inspirationalcreatives.com to get free exclusive bonus material. And now, on with the show. Rob here, and welcome to another episode of Inspirational Creatives. My guest today is a woman who helps women to get pregnant. She is someone who deals with fertility challenges in a creative way, which is why I'm delighted to have her on the show today. As a certified naturopathic doctor, she creates unique treatment plans that combine holistic healing methods which maximise the chance of getting pregnant. As somebody who helps women to feel nurtured, empowered and understood, I'm delighted to introduce to you today, from Hong Kong, Dr. Kate. Dr. Kate, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be chatting with you today.
I'm delighted to have you on the show. So before we begin, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and how you see yourself in the world today. How would you describe yourself and what it is that you do?
I offer an incredibly personalized support system to women, and I have this incredible medicine as a backup for that support. I use herbal medicines and supplements and food to guide women to wellness. And I just offer a real hug and support for women who are wanting to feel better about their lives and wanting to feel better about their bodies.
That's fascinating. The burning question I have is, how did you get into that in the first place?
Well, I have always, from a very young age, been a listener. Maybe to my own detriment for a short period of time. I just found myself being a supportive listener to all sorts of people. And I always would end up surrounding myself with people who, were very open about what they were up to and very open about how they were feeling about life. So I would say from a young age, I started to be take on that kind of role as supporter. But I needed some more tools and needed some more ways to help people process what was going on. So I, early on in my career or in my professional development, I got involved with environmental issues and saw that, that was a great way to support the earth and to support people. But it started to get even more deep when I started to use the earth medicine as a way of treating women and offering the support that I do. So I ended up studying naturopathic medicine, and not completely on my own, because my grandmother was a very early adopter, and my grandfather as well. They were very concerned about physical and nutritional health. They were both very concerned about keeping their bodies mobile and, did lots of exercise. But they also ate very holistically. I mean, my grandma lived on a farm, but she was, as she developed herself, she started to take all sorts of vitamins. She was concerned about whole food eating. She was an incredible woman. Her body lived until the age of 97. So she definitely inspired my desire to go into healthcare. And of course, my mom was a nurse, and my uncle as well was in medicine as a doctor. And I just had all sorts of healthcare practitioners around me, but I wanted to do it a little bit differently. And my concern about environmental issues really worked in well with that, because we need to preserve our forests, we need to preserve our gardens and our plants, because they are our medicine. So it was a really good transition into offering what I had always done, which was to offer my support and a listening ear and support to other people.
Were you particularly close to your grandparents? You speak of them quite fondly there.
Yeah, I was my grandpa's favorite. created a little bit of jealousy, but yeah, he was, we were very close. My grandpa died when I was 8 years old, so quite young. And I remember that being the first sadness that I ever truly had to process. And then my grandmother, she lived a much longer period of time. So she was able to meet my husband, after we were married. We went to visit her. I think she didn't get to meet any of the children. Oh, wait, maybe I'm wrong. No, I remember photographs too. So she met my kids as well. But, there were lots of times when I would go and visit her and have meals with her. Even as an adult, decided to do those things, even after my parents no longer were accompanying me to Ottawa, I would still go and visit her and share with her. And she was very inspirational to me. She was an incredibly strong, we talk now about empowered women, and she, delayed getting married until very late in her life, not until she was in her late 30s. She worked, she was a career woman. She had her own job as a secretary for many, many years. And really it was based on peer pressure that she even decided to get married. It was just suggested by her pastor, thankfully, to me. I'm very grateful. But yeah, she was so strong in her way. She had her personal style. She went against the grain with what she wanted to eat. And she was just a wonderful, beautiful person, very inspiring. Her name was Jessica, and she was her grandma Jess. And she was, to all of us, just an incredible power horse. She's great.
So growing up, were you able to spend much time on their farm?
She had already left the farm. My mother spent time up on the farm in Tara, Ontario. But by the time I was, of an age that I could have visited, I believe the farm had already been sold or partitioned off, so it was no longer functioning. Yeah, so I didn't get to spend time on her farm. I did spend time on other farms, and, some of our friends, when I was growing up, we used to go out to different people's farms, and I remember drinking goat milk from some of the goats, which now you can often find in the supermarket. But at the time it was like, what? What is this? And I had that exposure. And then also, when I did my environmental degree, I spent an entire summer working on a heritage homestead where we followed the traditional, which would have been Mennonite farming methodologies. I was helping out with that, and also helping out with the education program, which is now really well established in Kitchener, Ontario, the Stuckley Heritage Homestead. They have weddings there, and they have educational programs, community gardens. It's pretty incredible. We also talked a lot about nonviolent communication, and they've done some programs with that as well. So I find myself called back to farms wherever I am. So.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You've painted a lovely picture there in terms of where your inspiration may have come from. Could you talk to me a little bit more about this term naturopathic and what that really means? It's a new term to me, so I'm interested to know specifically what naturopathic means in your world.
Yeah, in my world, naturopathic doctors are doctors who are really concerned about getting at the root of people's health problems. So rather than just temporarily dealing with symptoms, really trying to understand where the system has gone wrong. And when you start to offer support to that system, then everything starts to balance out, and there's no longer a need for external influence. The body starts to heal itself. And that's an incredible process. People really do get connected to their illness, and it's hard to let go of a diagnosis. But really, a naturopath will try to see each person as an individual, and we will work from blood test results and diagnostic test results, but we really are trying to see each person as a whole person. There are parts of North America where we do prescribe conventional medicines. So we do have a prescription rights in different provinces and states, and that varies what we're allowed to use. However, the intention really is to realign and rebalance the body, and not to get the patient to be dependent on us or dependent on any medication, but really to find ways where they emotionally and physically can support themselves completely on their own.
Now, you specialize working with helping people get pregnant with this naturopathic approach, which sounds fascinating to me. And in many respects, just as you're talking there and describing it to me, almost feels quite intuitive in some respects for me, because if I've got a particular personal frustration, I think with everyday medicine is I don't feel it looks at the bigger picture. It just looks at a specific thing and then addresses that. Whereas I like this idea where we're looking at things holistically and trying to address issues and concerns from that point of view. So that sounds fascinating to me. So how does that work in the context of pregnancy and helping people get pregnant?
Yeah, well, the fertility issues may be the main concern, but obviously there's going to be other issues that are involved in creating the infertility. So it's an excellent example that fertility is really not infertility is not a diagnosis. It's just a symptom of something that's going on within the body. So there's some sort of imbalance within the body. So we're looking at all the different systems, looking at the digestive system, looking at hormonal function, and we're looking at emotional issues that people may have had. It plays in very well when you're looking at fertility issues. And I also do work with men. Oftentimes, women are taking the responsibility completely for themselves. But when we work with the dad, the male part of the couple, we find that there often are issues with his fertility as well. So really important to bring that in as you're looking at it holistically, thinking of all the aspects and all the different angles of what might be going on to cause the infertility.
Wow. So let's dive a little bit deeper and talk a little bit more about some of these aspects. What are some of the more effective approaches, common approaches that you've worked with to help them with their fertility?
Well, my first concern with them is to make sure that they understand their cycle. I mean, they need to understand the menstrual cycle and not only know when their last period was. A lot of women can tell me their last period. They use an app where they just write down, the last time they had a cycle, and then that's all they know. But there's all sorts of yummy details that the body shares with us every month. So I am making sure that they are recognizing the signs of ovulation. And if they're very conscious of what's going on with their bodies, then they will know. Then and that's a real key part to the fertility question, that they understand that. And it also helps me start to create a treatment plan as well for them, because we can see quite quickly what's going on within their bodies if they're doing an effective charting method. Yeah, so that's definitely a first line. And some people, won't realize that that's really very important, because timing is key. There's a very small window of fertility. It's very miraculous that we managed to get that timing. And so everything needs to be in the right place in order for that to be effective. Yeah.
Wow. So what are some of the signs that you would say that most people miss that they could be looking for, just as an example, perhaps?
Yeah, well, we talk about this gets graphic. So
okay.
Heads up, but we talk about red flow. So we talk about menstruation and when a woman has their period as one type of flow. And there's also white flow. So white flow is what women will experience approximately midway between their periods, between their menstruation. So this white flow is often missed. When I work with women, we work to increase that white flow because it's also referred to as cervical mucus, and that keeps the sperm alive. Without that, the sperm die. So the female genitalia is extremely acidic, and it's set up to kill anything that comes into its way that is not welcome, and that includes sperm when we're not fertile. So during times when the body is not fertile, the environment is very acidic and will kill any sperm. So it's only during ovulation that the body is accepting of the sperm. And that white flow is something that a lot of women miss or misinterpret, or, there's something else going on, and there's variations of it. And you need really to be very observant and get in touch with your body to really understand what's going on. And that's a huge part of what I do. I really encourage women to not be afraid of what's going on. I start to use menstrual products that might involve them investigating their bodies in totally different ways. It's a bit like fried green tomatoes. I don't know if you ever saw that film, but it's the whole idea of bringing new life and bringing creativity to your body has to do with getting to know who you are and getting to know what your body feels like. And, knowing your body before you have children and knowing yourself before you have children is a great gift to this new life that you're bringing into the world. So, yeah, white flow is something that is often overlooked and underobserved.
Amazing. So quite obviously there's an element of an awareness here, and then there's obviously action that you can take as well. Not only increase that awareness, but then do something about it as well and increase that white flow as you were describing there. You also mentioned creativity. So how does that play a part in all of this?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned before, the term infertility is not one I like. I like to use the term fertility. So I'm a fertility doctor. I help women increase their fertility. And to me, fertility is all about creative energy. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're wanting to create something. And I feel that it can be overwhelming for some women that they become so obsessed with creating this one thing. They've decided, okay, in order to be a creative being, I need to create a child. And I really encourage women who are developing the desire and creating a space within their bodies for this new life, that they investigate other creative aspects of themselves and really take a look at what they are creating and what they hope to create in the world beyond and besides a child. So it's really about getting that creative juice flowing in the body. And that then could manifest as a child, but it often can manifest as something completely different, a change in career or a desire to start a product or create an Instagram account. I mean, it's all sorts of ways that it starts to come out, and it's really fun and a relief as well for women to start to change their focus. And a lot of people know that stress is not a great supporter of fertility, and a lot of people end up under tremendous stress trying to create a new life, and it just is not beneficial at all. So start allow creative energy to go into different pathways. Then we just generally increase our creative energy and potentially have energy to create a new life. And even from a TCM, a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, we talk about qi energy and the kidney energy, and that's creative energy as well. And that is the food we eat, the temperature of the food we eat, also the things we think about, what we watch, what we read. All of those sorts of things start to come into our understanding of how we can drain our energy or how we can add back positive energy to our bodies and to our minds.
Wow, there's quite a lot in there to think about. One of the things that really stood out for me there is how something such as the temperature of the food that you consume can greatly affect you. What's that all about?
Yeah, well, Chinese medicine talks about the energetic temperature of the food. And so whether it's a sweet food or whether it's a hot food or a cold food, that can affect different organ systems. And we as individuals have a tendency towards different temperatures. So if we're someone who, reacts quite quickly and gets angry and has a lot of redness in our bodies, in our face or throughout our body, then we would be considered to be heaty, to have a lot of heat. So if we're eating foods that are too hot for our bodies, then we're only adding to the problem. Whereas if we eat cooling foods, then we can calm it down. However, when we are trying to conceive, we want to keep the uterus warm. So if there is excess heat, we want to try and clear that, because we don't want to be eating foods that are too cooling when we're trying to conceive. So it comes like from an energetic perspective, but then even, the actual temperature of our food. So if we are eating cold foods, a lot of people will try to avoid eating or drinking cold water when they're eating a meal, because that cold water is said to cool the fires of digestion, and we need to have heat in our systems in order to process the food. So we would suggest that you had, warm room temperature water when you're eating. So all of this comes into play. I have the advantage as a naturopath of having several different methods of analyzing the body. So we do use, like I mentioned, we do use diagnostic tools, blood tests, X-rays, conventional medicine, but we also use tongue and pulse diagnosis. I was trained in traditional Chinese medicine, and we also use our herbal methods of determining what's wrong with the body. And then we also can look at nutritional aspects, some interesting symptoms that might indicate deficiencies. So using the different types of medicine and really taking advantage of all these tools that I have is incredible in order to try and solve the mystery of each of my patients' bodies, And
it is a mystery. And yeah, I love the idea that you're almost solving a puzzle there, and because we're all very unique and very individual, and there's not going to be any one fix for all of this. I'm fascinated by what you were saying there, and it makes sense to me. I can totally understand how, if you look at food as energy and then the temperature of that food, how that could contribute to or detract from in terms of our digestion and our internal body energy and all the rest of it. I'm interested to know, from a guy's perspective then, I could imagine a sort of a creatively frustrated or an angry, tense kind of guy wouldn't probably be the perfect person to be fertile in that sense. This is my imagination playing out here. But he could be actually taking a diet and doing things like perhaps not eating the best foods for himself, which would be increasingly making him less fertile. Is that the sort of thing that you've seen?
Yeah, I think that we get into this pattern, this cycle of like being stressed out. So we eat foods that are comforting, or we start to drink alcohol thinking that that's going to relax us. And then we start to deplete our systems because alcohol or tobacco or poor food is just depleting rather than adding into our systems. Our adrenal function, which is the kidneys there, starts to fail. And we think, we're doing our best. We think that by succeeding in our career and doing really well financially, that's going to solve all our problems for us. But really, it starts to create all this stress and tension in our bodies, and it just becomes this cycle of not being able to sleep and overworking and not feeding our bodies properly. So yeah, that would be. It starts, I think, with an awareness, so a consciousness, and a lot of people are open now to mindfulness practice and meditation practice, and this has become and has always been really a big part of how I've tried to help people approach their wellness. And people are becoming more and more aware of how helpful it can be. There's these lovely apps that are out there, that have guided meditations. And really being able to monitor your mood and monitor your response to life helps you become a responsive rather than a reactive being. And that's really what conventional medicine does. It reacts to the problem. But as a naturopath, I'm hoping to be responsive, that people come to me even when they're well. Women come to me as a well-being and they want to prepare for this marathon of parenting, and they want to prepare their bodies in the best way. They want their husbands, their partners to be conscious of how they're preparing their bodies too. And it means better outcomes, not only for the baby, which of course everyone wants, but also for mom, after having the baby, that she finds herself relaxed, even though she's lacking sleep, that she finds she's actually able to ask for the support that she needs. And the husband as well is feeling healthy enough that he can offer support to her or offer, other ways to solve any issues that may be going on. Because those first days, those first months, first years really of parenting is very intense. It's nothing that you ever expected. So making sure that your body is ready and making sure you respond to stress in a healthy way is really key. And if you're uptight and angry and eating all sorts of foods that are bad for yourself, you're not going to give yourself the benefit of the doubt. So you need to start to be conscious of the effort that you're making. Reflection, meditation, mindfulness practice are great ways to start that consciousness of preparing your body for conception.
Something you mentioned just there about asking for the right sort of help, or asking for help indeed, it suggests to me that there's a link here between our health and confidence. Do you see that?
Yeah, I see that confidence in ourselves means that we see ourselves as worth it. We see ourselves as worthy beings. When you can care for yourself and trust yourself, forgive yourself. I mean, we make all sorts of mistakes, and to beat ourselves up over those mistakes will not contribute to confidence. And it's only when we start to develop this strong sense of self-value. And I'm not saying that we become hoity or haughty or think that we're better than other people, because that, again, is just a compensation. What I'm saying is you become conscious of your own value, and you value yourself, and you love yourself, and you take care of yourself. And because you're so full of understanding and forgiveness for yourself, you can offer that to other people. And it's difficult to be in a place where you're struggling with your own self-worth and try to ask for support, because so often we see asking for help, asking for support as being vulnerable and being weak. But really, it takes such a big, strong person to receive and to accept and to allow that kind of support. And when you're a new mom, you really need to do that. You really need to be prepared to ask for more support than you ever had, and to receive it no matter how it looks. You can't say, oh, you put the red and the blue socks on. That's, not the way I do it. You need to really just surrender to everything that's going on around you and allow yourself to focus on caring for your body, number one, and then making sure, of course, that you're caring for the child. But without a healthy body, then, and without a healthy, like you call it, self-confidence and love and trust for yourself, then it's going to be very difficult to offer more support and love to another being.
You mentioned surrender there, which is fascinating to me. Is that something you see with the folks that you work with? Do you see a lot of surrender going on in terms of them having to give up anything from like preconceived ideas or beliefs that they've had to everyday habits? What's the process there in terms of the work that you do?
Surrender to me is something that I've been really trying on a lot lately. I read a book recently called The Surrendered Wife. And to me, that at first seemed like I was really just going backwards in time, as a feminist and entrepreneur, woman, all this, hear me roar stuff. And to surrender is, it takes so much trust and trust in other beings, other people to provide for you without you really having any say as to what it looks like. And that, again, comes from really believing in yourself and taking care of yourself. Because you can say what you want and what you need only when you're listening to yourself. So if you see yourself as needy and dependent and requiring other people to make decisions for you, then you're going to surrender into a very strange place where someone takes over your life. But this is more about surrendering into the flow, surrendering into the creative energy, surrendering into what the plan is for you. Once you start to put your intention out there, not really knowing what's going to come back to you, and really being playful. I mean, I think that's what's so important about creative energy and creativity. As a creative being, you want to create something and you're not really sure what people are going to respond to or whether they will at all. And you take a huge risk, don't you, with everything you create. And so you need to surrender to just accept whatever comes back to you, and the surrender has become my mantra, as difficult as it is, because even as a young mother, you start to really need to take on a lot of responsibility for other lives around you. You start to find yourself controlling everything. Whom your children are playing with, what they're eating every day, the messages they're getting, and what they're in contact with. And then at a certain point, you need to surrender. You need to just allow this creative being that you brought into the world, allow it to make decisions on its own. And we so much as parents think, we need to keep being involved, but you need to let your creation go, just like when you put in a piece of art, or you put out a podcast, or do anything creative. You just need to let it go out there and be loved and appreciated and accepted, as an expression of your love, an expression of your inner being. And that's the surrender that I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I completely relate with what you're saying there, because even as a father, I mean, this morning I was thinking about some of the things that you just mentioned there in terms of, am I exposing my son to the right people in the right way? And I'm confident that I am. But at the same time, you're absolutely right. He's going on to make his own friends. And as a parent, I'm thinking, well, are these good people? He's only 5. But these are thoughts that are absolutely true for me. It's fascinating to hear you talk about it in that context, because maybe this is part of the answer for me in terms of having that confidence. It's surrendering and accepting the fact that he is his own person and he's going to make on his own life in that sense. And I play a part in that. But, I can't. And I wouldn't intend to completely control all of it too, but I have to prepare myself for that, and I have to trust that.
Surrendered parenting.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like from the moment the baby is born, you really don't know what you're in for, like some sleep, some don't, some eat, some don't, some scream, some sing, you really, and you don't want to control that, it's incredible. It's miraculous. Just thinking about, one cell after the other, and then creates this like unique being. I don't know about you, but when my daughter was born, she had her spirit from the moment she was born.
Yeah.
You just knew who she was, defiant and strong and confident, and she's just going to tell you the way it was from the beginning. And that's wonderful. And you don't want to quell that. You don't want to stop it. You want to allow that creative generation to just happen. And you guide, you're like, the little banks on the side of the river, but you definitely do not want to stop that off. No dams, no creating dams.
Yeah. And it does feel like that. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It does feel like guiding from the side of the river.
Yeah.
And it says a lot about the limited control, I would say, that you have, or influence over that situation. You have some, but only, a holler from the banks, as you suggest, in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, that's what naturopathic medicine is doing too. Ultimately, it's up to, the magic of nature. We influence as much as we can in order to maximize health and maximize emotional health, and try to work with both of the couple and add all sorts of wonderful energetic foods and healthy ways of thinking and looking at life. But ultimately, we really cannot control life. We even down to using in vitro, so extreme medical intervention, even then is not 100%. I mean, that's incredible. We've set the playing field. We've got, all the whole team is there. Everything is perfect. But why doesn't it always work? So I think it's an incredible exercise for people who are struggling to just trust the flow and trust that this is what is meant to be. And it can be a real struggle, because we see ourselves, okay, this is how we are going to be identified in the world. I'm going to be a mother. And then for it to take a bit of a different twist, not exactly the way you thought it was going to happen, it's a real struggle, and it's a real, opportunity, right? It's a challenge and opportunity for people to reevaluate and question status quo about who we are meant to be as humans. It gets deep. So yeah, it's an amazing opportunity for people to develop themselves emotionally and spiritually.
Yeah. And with those that you work with, do you see that evolution? Do you see that transformation?
Yeah, I'm just overwhelmed by some of the things that my patients have come into the office with, all sorts of wonderful books about spirit babies. And I give, as a part of my toolbox, I ask people to set intentions. And I talk to them about, what is your intention for this child? I mean, for you to just say it's because I want to have something that's an extension of me. Well, sorry, that's just not going to happen anyways, really, what are you wanting to add to the world? And think about that, and think about that kind of love or trust or ingenuity or whatever it is that you're hoping this child will bring. And bring that into your environment, bring that into your consciousness instead of merely create child, So it does require that people start to think differently about what their desired outcome is, what their demand is on life. So I definitely see a change, and working as well with my male patients, I'm always advising spiritual and meditation and this kind of wellness. So they're asked to question what they're up to, for sure.
And do you see a change in people's creative output through this process, both before and after, birth in that sense?
Yeah, I have seen some of those little stories about, what women have decided to get up to instead of having their 100% focus on creating a baby. I have seen women really resonate when I say that, and I talk to them about, let's talk about other ways that you could stimulate this creative energy. They'll start to feel differently about their relationship, and they start to feel differently about their bodies, and they are starting to create other aspects of themselves, develop their education, I have had Instagram accounts set up, and people are really starting to see it as a different process, not solely focused on their reproduction, but really adding to the planet, adding to the creative energy of what we're developing as a community of people, rather than just on an individual couple basis.
Yeah. I can imagine how also that process in itself, almost counterintuitively taking the focus off becoming pregnant, could actually lead to becoming pregnant because of more of a focus on being yourself and focusing on who you really are and trying to find out who that is through creativity and, as you suggested earlier, spirituality.
Yeah, I encourage people to attend, if they're here in Hong Kong, to attend moon ceremonies, which I hold. And that's like another way of kind of understanding more about our plan here on the planet. We get so distracted by our buildings and, in our cities, and really forget about that whole connection, that like I have with my grandmother from the farm, and understanding the energy of our foods, so if we can find ways to reconnect by doing something like that, like recognizing, even just taking a look up into the sky and trying to see the moon on full moon nights, or trying to find a star in the sky if we're able to leave the city, just helping us reconnect to the bigger energy. And that's really what creative energy is about, and adding life to the planet is about. It's really about this bigger Gaia, this Mother Earth that we're living on. Again, back to my environmental roots of caring for this planet, that we're a part of the ecosystem, and when we start to think about how we are impacting what we're doing on a personal level to improve the health of the planet, not just our own bodies, but the body of the earth, that can be extremely enlightening to us and make a massive change in how we're looking at creativity and the creation of life.
It's all connected. Yeah. Absolutely. And I particularly love how that relates to what you said earlier about, rather than just adding a child to the world, what is it that you want to bring into the world, and that intention.
Yeah, we so often just start doing things by rote, okay, we're this age, so time for university, or this age, so time to get married, or this age, so time to have kids, and we don't really think about it. So, having a little bit of a challenge can make our intention that much stronger, and make our lives that much more meaningful in the life of a child that does eventually come into our lives, no matter how it happens. It could be from a different method than that we originally hoped for. But yeah, we've got this whole different way of thinking about it as a part of the big picture. Yeah.
I love that. Dr. Kate, I'm very conscious of your time, and it's been a wonderful conversation. I would just love to ask you a few questions just as we wrap up, if you wouldn't mind. What would you say, for yourself personally, what has been one of the biggest lessons or insights you've received through all of this work that you've done so far in your life's journey?
I spoke about it already. I think my biggest lesson about being a healer and being able to offer support to other people is really having this belief in myself and this trust in myself, and also being really generous with myself for making mistakes, and allowing myself to make repeated mistakes. Especially as an entrepreneur, you really learn that journey. And you learn also to take responsibility for your feelings and take responsibility for your actions. I think it's all as well becoming an adult and being a responsible being on this planet, to take responsibility for all of yourself. But it's also been extremely empowering to have more and more belief in myself, because it doesn't require that I am, acknowledged by someone else. It doesn't require that, I have somebody else make me happy. All of those things are really already here. All of that love and all of that care and all of that respect comes first from within. And you're not able to ask for that support. You're not able to see what you need until you're completely full yourself, until you're completely in love with yourself, I guess is a way of saying it, but really have a lot of trust and self-respect. And that's come, I mean, my journey to being a naturopath as a young naturopath, so much of you're so afraid you're going to do the wrong thing and make the wrong choice, and how can I treat this person? And really so much of what people are wanting is to believe that they are cared for, and that I have their best interest in mind, and then I want to care for them, and I can only give that to them when I have it myself, when I have already taken care of myself. And it's a huge part of being a healer, a huge part of being a parent, a friend. New moms, they have it really hard because they are caring so much for this other being, and they really need to care for themselves. And if they don't, they'll start to feel it. We do start to feel it. And so it's so important to have ways to care for yourself, and not just, simple things like a beauty treatment, but I mean some real acknowledgement. And that comes great with meditation practice, in accepting this being and seeing yourself as part of the whole ecosystem, and how important your role is, how vital you are, and how loved you are and accepted and needed you are by the planet. So that's been really key in my development. I can't say I'm 100% always there, but I can definitely see when I'm off the path, and I can see how that affects my relationships, and it affects my relationship with patients as well.
Amazing. And those patients that you work with, what advice would you give to anyone looking to learn more about the work that you do and the treatments that you offer?
Yeah, I have a website, drkatherinedale.com, where I offer some free gifts for people. That important first step of learning about your fertility chart, learning about when you are having your red flow and when you're having your white flow. That's something that I offer to people. They can sign up for on my website and start to chart. And I have some courses as well that people can work through that are available for sale on my website as well. And there's an introduction to charting, knowing your cycle is on there. And I've got some great courses as well, starting to tune into moon energy. And then my favorite, of course, is one-to-one consultations that I offer as well. And I work with people online as well as one-to-one. And I'm able to offer support, looking at what they're eating and suggesting supplements perhaps, and herbal remedies and homeopathics. So they can do all of that. They can contact me through my website, the same contact at drkatherinedale.com as well.
Super. And my final question, what or who has inspired you most recently?
I have realized lately that my life is filled with inspiring people. I remember years ago my friend saying, "Who is your hero?" And now I find it just my life filled with heroes. I'm inspired by all of my patients. They're always teaching me incredible things, and I'm overwhelmed by that. I would have to say most recently, I was inspired by two performers who came to Hong Kong as a part of the Garden Gathering, which is a women's gathering, although it could become just a community gathering in the future. But it's a place where we share our skills with each other, and it's a real community-based activity. And these women came from Brooklyn, from Sacred Sound. They're the Sacred Sound healers, Brooke and Shola, and they were just so filled with a love for traditional methods, traditional healing, traditional sounds. They're part of a group that's worldwide, and they learn the traditions of Native peoples from different parts of the planet, and they learn their songs, and they use flutes and drums and guitars and sitars and harmoniums and all beautiful, beautiful sounds that are in honor of the earth and in honor of these traditional peoples from all over the world. And I was very inspired by them. I got to listen to them perform several times, and just a real clear reminder to me of my background, my homeland of Canada. And that's where I started to learn this medicine. And it was a real reminder of the drum being the heartbeat of the earth, and to really feel again my connection, which was there from a very young age. And I'm reconnecting with, again, here in Hong Kong, as I do my moon ceremonies and teach people more about reconnecting to their wellness.
Gosh, that sounds amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Well, on that note, pun intended, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I hope your audience finds some little jewels of information in there, and I'd love to talk to any of them if they want to get in touch with me.
Thanks for listening. Nothing beats the stories and advice of an expert to help you raise your creative game. I would love to know what you thought about today's episode, so don't forget to subscribe in iTunes, where you can rate and review the show. If you like this episode, I invite you to share it on Facebook or Twitter with the one person you know who will benefit from the wisdom shared here today. You can find the show notes on inspirationalcreatives.com/podcast. If you have a burning question or a great idea for a guest, head on over to inspirationalcreatives.com/contact, where you can connect with me there.